It's now finally time for your very first coding challenge. So, coding challenges are basically coding exercises that you have to code on your own, and they are super important for you to test and reinforce all the skills that you just learned before. That's why there are dozens of coding challenges in this course because students love them and they are one of the best ways of learning. And so this is the coding challenge number one of the section or coding exercise if you prefer to call it that. Now anyway, the exercise is this: Mark and John are trying to compare their body mass indexes and the BMI is calculated using this formula. So BMI is equal to mass divided by the height squared. Okay? And so squared is the exponentiation operator that we talked about before with the 2. Okay? And so that is also the same to mass equals height times height. Okay? So this part is the same as this one. So you can choose to calculate the BMI either way. Now, what matters is that a mass needs to be in kilograms and to height needs to be in meters. So it's not gonna work with the US measures like feet and pound, but that's why I have the test data here already with the correct measurements. Anyway, here is what I want you to do for this challenge. 1. You should store Mark's and John's mass and height in variables, and you should do this for test data 1. So this data here, and then also for test data 2. Alright, then using these variables calculate both their BMIs using the formula that I just showed you. And again, you can use either one, it's gonna work the same way. Of course, to then check these values, if they make sense, you can log them to the console just like we have been doing up until this point. Then finally, I want you to create a boolean variable called Mark hired me, which will contain the information whether Mark has a higher BMI than John. And this is actually similar to something that we did before, so I hope that you can make this one work just fine. So now please really try to solve this problem on your own. And remember the advice that I gave you in the beginning. Don't try to make this perfect for now. What matters is really just to make it work. It doesn't matter if you write clean code or perfect code or efficient code, just make it work for now. So pause the video now and I see you in a second with the solution. I hope you managed to complete all the 3 points of this challenge. And so here is how I would have implemented it. So I'm starting with number 1, of course. And so let's say const mass smart equals 78. Okay, so that's just what is written here. And then height mark equals 169. And then the same for John. So mass John equals 92. And then height John equals 195 now, right? And if you use different variable names, that's not a problem at all. As long as they are nicely descriptive like these ones here, you're going to be fine. Also, you might have used a let here instead of cons because you might assume that these are values that are susceptible to change, especially here the mass. Alright. However, I still decided to use cons because I already know that I'm not going to change these values here throughout the program. And so just as we learned before, I prefer to always use cons by default and I advise you to actually do the same. Okay. Anyway, let's now calculate the actual BMIS. So const BMI mark equals mass mark divided, and let's check out the formula again, divided by the height squared. So that's going to be height mark squared. And then the BMI jump. So that's mass jump. And this time let's actually use the other formula. So this one here. So we're gonna use height John times height John again. Okay? And now let's log both of them to the console here. So bmimark and bmijan. And now we have an error here. Oh, of course, I missed the dot log. Okay, try it again. And here we go. So we see that bmimark is higher than John's BMI. Okay. So I hope you got the same numbers here than I did. And if not, I guess you should probably check your code unless I have some mistake here. Let me check that actually. But I think everything is good. Okay. So if something is wrong, then please just let me know. Alright. Now, if you implemented this in a different way, for example, you might not have created these separate variables here, then that's not a problem at all. Okay? You could have logged these calculations straight to the console. No problem at all. Again, what matters here is that you make this work and that in the end you get these same results here. Anyway, let's now also do step 3 and create a variable called mark_me. So let's just grab this here and const. And so what we're trying to figure out is if the BMI of Mark is higher than the BMI of John, right? And so that's what comparison operators are for, because remember that this one here will return either true or false. In our example, if BMI mark is larger than one of John, then the result of this whole operator here will be true and otherwise it's gonna be false. Okay. So that's exactly what we did before in this example with the ages if I remember correctly. So where's that? It's right here. In this case, it was isFoolish variable, right? Okay. Anyway, let's log to your tutor console as well. And so we expect this one to be true, right? Because Mark's BMI is 27 and John's is 24. And so Mark's is larger. And so the result of this should be true. So let's check that. And indeed, we get true. Nice. So we basically solved it. Now I just want to do the same here for test data too. So we'll just copy this. So copy, and then I will simply comment out these first ones. So now I'm replacing these with 95, 188. And then here for John, we have 85 and 176. And the rest of course is the same. And that's the beauty of using variables, because now all we have to do is to change these values in one place, and then the changes will be propagated to the rest of the code here, which references these variables. Cool. So let's reload. And now BMI of John is 27. So it's larger than 26.8. It's actually very close, but still bmimark is now lower than bmijang. So here we ask the question, basically, is bmimark larger than bmijang? And in this case, it's not. So it's false. And so that's exactly the result that we get here. Alright? So this one is solved, and I hope you solved it as well. Again, it does not matter at all if you did it in a different way as long as the results were the same. So basically, as long as you actually made it work. So hopefully that was a lot of fun and you could practice your skill set a little bit, which is really something essential to learn programming properly. Without repetition and reinforcing your knowledge, it's impossible really to learn how to code. Anyway, see you now in the next video where we're going to continue learning the fundamentals of the beautiful JavaScript language.